So I'm going to talk about the Doppelbock I brewed a week ago from the time I'm actually recording this, which is a few days before it actually hits YouTube. So I brewed a Doppelbock, and this is only the second Bock beer I've done. The first one was a Dunkelsbock, and that was a kit that I won as a door prize from one of our malt infusers meetings. That kit was 9 pounds of Munich 2, 3 pounds of Pilsner, half pound of Cara Munich, 2 ounces of Carafa, 2 I think. I didn't write down which one. 2 sounds reasonable, and that's just for color. 2 ounces of Tettnang at 60 minutes, and a pack of WLP 3470. I decided I didn't like that hopping schedule, so I said, you know what, I'm going to keep the Tettnang, because that's a good noble hop for this kind of use, for this style of beer. But I put in 1.25 ounces at 60 minutes, and then 1/2 ounce at 15. And I actually probably could have gone up to 3/4 ounce and still not been too hoppy or bitter for the style. The Tettnang to me is a wonderful smelling hop, but it's frequently, every time I've used it, seemed fairly underpowered. So I decided when I went to the Doppelbock to keep it mostly the same. Kicked up Munich by another pound to 10 pounds. Kicked up the Pilsner by, well, a factor of 2. I went from 3 pounds to 6 pounds. I wanted, some more gravity to it. Half pound of Cara Munich still, didn't change that. Didn't change the Carafa. This is partway through fermentation, so it's a bit cloudy. The yeast has not fallen at all. In fact, it's, I think it was 1042 was my, or 1044 currently. I'm getting ready to start letting it warm up to get to do a diacetyl rest, which it actually needs. I mean, if I take a whiff of this, I can really smell it. It's diacetyl. I'm sorry, it's not diacetyl. It's acetaldehyde, which it comes across people in different ways. Frequently people say, oh, it's a green apple or like a candy apple sweet flavor, and I tend to get that more with like just a greenness in beer, particularly beers with a lot of Munich malt in them, although not everyone minus one. I'm going to pause this right here because the train of thought left the station. What I was going to say is that the acetaldehyde that I was getting in this beer was really coming across more like a cut pumpkin or sort of latex, almost a little musty too. It was definitely there, but not the green apple, kind of candy apple flavor that is sometimes associated with this. There's probably some diacetyl in this too, because I haven't gone through the diacetyl rest. I did a few things differently. One thing is, instead of using 1 pack of 3470, I decided I'd use 2 packs of L13 Global. So nice 400 billion cells going into this beer. And then I sweated for 4 days, I think, while it lagged. I mean, it lagged for a while. I'd occasionally see bubbles, and I finally just let it warm up to close to 60 degrees. And it started kicking off the fermentation, and since then I've been keeping it down in the 50s, low 50s, high 40s. But it's right now, so the original gravity was 1087. I was shooting for 1086. That sounds really good until I say that I've got 4.85-ish, 4.9, something like that, gallons into the fermenter. I was going for 5 1/4. I always go for about a quart more when it comes to transferring, just in case there's any loss, and to leave the trub behind. Try to get as little of that stuff into the finishing, into my kegs. So, I mean, efficiency is a little bit of an issue, but a lot better now. And one thing I did differently, usually I put the grains in my cooler. I have a standard cooler setup. If you've read How to Brew, you know what I'm talking about. In fact, I actually went through and I marked on my workbench 1/2-inch intervals and made lines from it, and that's where I cut some copper pipe to build a manifold for the bottom. It works really well, but for the longest time I'd put the grain in. I'd preheat the mash tun with about 10 gallons of very, very hot, near boiling water, drain that out, then put the grain in, then add water, and frequently miss my mash temperature. So this time I did it sort of the opposite way a little bit. I preheated the mash tun, of course, but then I added in 5 gallons of water. I really needed 5 1/4, but what's 1 quart, So I added that in at I think 185, expecting more of a loss than what I did. And don't quote me on that temperature, I may be off 10 degrees. But I originally mashed in, pouring in the grain into the water instead, the opposite way. And ended up having to stir it down quite a bit to get it down to about 156. So this should finish with a pretty good body. That's really what I'm shooting for. This should not be a thin beer. It's a Doppelbock. It's really meant to be liquid bread, something that monks would live off of while they're going through a Lenten fast. So anyway, it's currently at 1042. I'm expecting it to get down to about 1020. So like I said, getting really close to kicking it up in temperature, basically pulling out ice packs and probably actually draining out some of the water out of the water bath to let it rise up to about 70 for that diacetyl rest. So that's what I have today. I actually have some brew day videos, but I haven't really looked at them yet. I've got as far as getting them into Shotcut and letting it start to build the proxy files for it so I can actually edit them, or well, chop them up really. Probably not a whole lot of real editing. So cheers.